you watch football commentators, and their predictions are basically a projection of the team last year. So they go...
Or even last game.
Sometimes last game. But particularly at the start of a season, you listen to them all talk about it, and what they're saying is, based on what this group of people did last year.
The question is, from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much.
This podcast, just to let everybody know before we dive in, is part of a series where we're going to explore common thinking errors. Now, we all have these from time to time, and they're absolutely normal. But most of the time, we make these mistakes in our thinking, but it turns out to be fine, no real issue. Occasionally, however, these thinking errors do get in our way. They cause perhaps us to be unsuccessful or even cause us harm. And in today's podcast, we're jumping into the topic of jumping to conclusions.
You know, I suspected that, which is lucky because that's the one I've prepared, but I hadn't really thought about it.
Well, we can always change just to move it up a bit.
Don't do that.
So that brings me to the question then, Paul. So the question is, why do we do it? Why do we jump to conclusions?
Well, I think let's look at it the other way around and not look at why it's bad. Let's look at why it's good. Imagine going through a day where we couldn't put the facts together, jump forward 3 steps in the plan and work things out. You'd just be checking stuff all the time. You'd be like, what does that mean? What does this mean? What's going on here? Can I check in on this? You know, we have to make a level of assumption, and we're really good at it. We use the past to predict the future. So we're really kind of good at working out what other people are doing. You're driving in a car, you get to some traffic lights. You know, the traffic lights are red, you stop. The traffic lights go green. You are going to naturally assume everybody else is going to stop. And that's how we navigate the world. So we're kind of, I forget the actual technical name for it, but we're kind of working out what's going to happen next from what happened last. Why the pandemic was so hard for us in the first few months, because actually everything that happened previously had no bearing on the...
changed.
Yeah, the rule book had changed. So basically I can go back and go, based on what I know what's going to happen next, I know nothing about what's happening. Nothing I've got is going to be useful for it. So we jump to conclusions all the time. What we're really talking about here is a thinking error, is when we do it and we create big leaps that are unsubstantiated and therefore are problematic.
So I suppose there's a little bit of beware the conclusions you're making before you go and engage and act and do things on the back of them.
Yes.
Otherwise, you do run the risk of making... I mean, let's face it, the stock market are doing this all the time, right?
Absolutely.
So they're going, new CEO, that means this. They're going, these results mean that. They're going, they've invested in this tech. I mean, anybody not investing in AI at the moment, I imagine the market is taking a dim view of their strategy.
Yeah, and I think, if you took a market view of it, I suspect jumping to conclusions is the thing behind bubbles. You know, I always remember years and years and years ago going to a talk, an economist from Henley, brilliant talk. And he gave this speech about a load of stuff going on without putting any detail in it. So he talked about behaviours, but he didn't tell you any of the facts. And at the end of it, he's like, what am I talking about? And I was in a tech company at the time, and everyone went, oh, this is the internet bubble. And he went, no. This was the railway revolution of, something. Because what he was talking about was that people very quickly went railway good. Therefore, anything with railway is good. And he gave some examples. And my favourite, I remember, was I think it was a chain of tea shops that managed to get more interest and more people to invest in them because they changed themselves to the railway tea shop. And he said some of them weren't some of them were in train stations, but a lot of them weren't. They were nowhere near, had nothing to do with railways. Yeah, they just changed their name and everyone went, that must be amazing. And so that's jumping to conclusions because there's no evidence to support that at all.
And AI seems to be the
great thing.
The new railway.
We see it all the time in sport, right? I mean, it's one of my I know you're a big football fan. You watch football commentators, and their predictions are basically a projection of the team last year. So they go,
or even last game.
Sometimes last game, but particularly at the start of a season. You listen to them all talk about it, and what they're saying is, based on what this group of people did last year. And you go one step further. It was my favourite pet hate in football is they go, this team has never won against this team in this, in this cup. And you go, well, that's because this team and that team, they've never played in this cup. I mean, Tottenham have played Liverpool before, but not this group of 11 people against that group of 11 people. Probably not even in this stadium, because the last time these two teams met at this level, it was in black and white, and they wear long shorts, and the pitch was muddy. And at a football level, it's quite, you can take it quite funny. I mean, commentators are particularly, some of the research into how good are sports commentators are actually predicting anything, and the answer is if you go back on the, what did you say would happen to what did happen, you'd be better off with a set of dice.
Magic 8 ball.
Magic 8 ball. I mean, commentators are particularly awful at it, but they make these kind of logical leaps without any evidence. But we do it in the workplace as well.
Well, and that's interesting when you think about my team that I support in terms of Liverpool. I mean, the team that won the league last year, he sold half of them, and they're all going, Liverpool are going to win the league. Based on what?
Based on what? Based on what they did last year.
All of these new players, a lot of them have never played in this league, and it's acknowledged that the Premier League is one of the toughest leagues. And
I have the reverse thing. Everyone's saying Tottenham are going to be awful. Based on what? Based on they had a really bad season last year with a load of injuries.
But there is a condition that they call Spursy for that, isn't there? Which was really interesting.
Right, moving on.
But
we're doing labelling in a different one of these podcasts.
Oh, sorry. But equally, you go, it links perhaps to some of that all or nothing stuff. So these things stack up.
Yeah.
We draw this conclusion, therefore it must be.
Yeah.
And this will happen.
I had an example recently where a client hadn't phoned us back about something, and this client was particularly good at returning calls and replying to emails and stuff like that. And eventually I started thinking, oh, we've clearly done something. We've upset them. We've done something wrong. Something bad's happened here. So eventually one day I'm sort of driving along and I thought, I'm just going to phone them. I'm just going to, put on my big boy pants and make a phone call. And the first thing they said was, oh, I'm so sorry. I've been meaning to phone you for days. I've just been so busy. We need to talk. And I was like, okay. Right.
And that happens all the time, isn't it? It's this frame we play out, particularly, and I think salespeople particularly, you have this meeting, you think it's gone wonderfully well, and then all of a sudden they ghost you. And sometimes they ghost you for good reasons because they don't want to do business and they don't want to have to tell you to.
They want to have a difficult conversation of
go
going,
away.
Yeah, you got this wrong.
So, if we leave it to drift long enough, they'll get the message. But often, there's a client I've been working with, and I know things are changing in their environment. I know his role has become greater than it was, and all of a sudden, his workload's just gone up, and therefore I know he's got coaching outstanding. So I just sent him a one-liner that says, "Have you given up on your coaching?" And he went, "No, need to talk." Well, let's talk Friday. But we still didn't talk that Friday, and we still need to get it in the diary. But in all the things, he's prioritising things that are important to him right now, and that's fine.
Yeah, and we have to accept that he's doing that. We can't read more into it than it is, and we get it a lot in the coaching work we do. That then one day will turn up, and then they'll be suddenly back on it, and they probably want it immediately.
Yeah, because that's their world, and that's absolutely right.
Look, I mean, the thing about, particularly with jumping to conclusions, is firstly, we do it because it's an amazingly good shortcut under pressure, under time pressure, under delivery pressure, to be able to kind of jump forward. And there's a couple of ways we do it. One is what we call mind reading, where I think, and again, we do this as human beings. There's this idea of theory of mind in psychology, which is like, I know that you know that I know that you know I know.
Can you say that again?
So I can't. But you get what I mean? It's like I can think about what's Ricky thinking about. So almost like in this podcast, as we're talking to each other, you're asking me questions, but I'm also thinking about, right, I've said this. I think he's going to ask me this next. So it's helping me prepare. And I'm constantly doing that. And actually, little kids don't do this. So again, from research, we know that it's a learned skill. The little kids don't do that. They're very literal in that moment. They're not thinking about what you were thinking. So when you see little children and going, what were you thinking? It's nothing to do. They can't imagine your thoughts yet. They haven't learned that skill. They learn that in, I think it's 5, 6, something like that. My child development psychology.
And that's where it all goes wrong.
Yeah, well, it's kind of
because we start jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, whereas younger kids don't. And there's a very famous experiment where the kid is shown a doll and the doll is moved, but one kid doesn't see it being moved, and so they ask the kid who didn't see it being moved, "Where's the doll?" And they will always. Sorry, you ask the kid that did see it being moved where the kid who didn't see it move thinks where the doll is, and the kid who did see it move will always say where it's moved, but the kid who doesn't see it moved will always say where it was. Whereas an adult, we know the kid didn't see it being moved, so we know it's where it was. It's very complex stuff.
Well, clearly, as you can tell, which is my face giving it away on a podcast that nobody can see.
It's called the Sally Ann test, and I would Google it, and there are probably better descriptions on the internet and on YouTube about how it works. But it's a really interesting concept. So mind reading, we're constantly looking at the people around us and thinking about what they're thinking. But we're doing it on what would I think in that scenario? How would I treat that scenario? So I have to think about what you're thinking based on my view of the world. But you're not me. So you go, you and I have worked together for a long time and we know each other really well and we work in the same space. And therefore my probability of getting what your next question is going to be right is high. It's not going to be 100%, but it's going to be high. But sometimes I'm working with people who I don't know at all. I don't know their frame of reference, don't know their background, don't know where coming from. They may not have anywhere near enough from, of my frame of context to be able for me to predict what's going to come next. But I'm constantly doing it. So sometimes I'm going to think what they're thinking and get it wrong. Sometimes that's based on me, and the other thing you talked about, when customers don't talk to you, we all like to think, well, I'd only do that if there was a problem. The reality is we do it to people all the time because we're focused on something else.
Yeah.
So mind reading is one of the ways we do this. The other is fortune telling, which is we're very good at going into the future and predicting how things are going to work.
This means that.
Yeah, and we have a negativity bias. So one of the things that you often see people doing is you go, right, I'm here, this could happen. I'm going to run 100 scenarios of what could happen. My negativity bias means of the 100 scenarios, 99 will end with death and destruction. 1 will end with wealth and riches. And now I've got a really nice probability of 99 to 1 that this is going to go wrong. None of which is true.
Because it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened. And we made it all up. The whole 100 were made up. None of them were real.
So how is this then playing out? How's it playing out in terms of a work context then?
So imagine your boss says, I really need this report urgently. You work late at night, you do the report, you send it in. Then you don't hear from them the next day or the day after.
And you're now going, I thought this was important.
Yeah. So
do they not realise I've worked really hard?
Yeah. They don't value my work. Right. Well, it could be, I need it because I'm in a 2-day conference. And they might come back afterwards and go, you are amazing. That was brilliant. But you've jumped to, I did this. I was expecting X feedback. I didn't get feedback. Therefore, it's terrible.
We're filling in that void with a negative frame, aren't we?
Yeah. Other times you could say somebody in the office, I had one the other day where somebody said, I wasn't invited to dinner by the team. Okay. Do you normally go to dinner with them? Well, yeah, I normally go, but I saw them invite somebody else. They didn't invite me. Okay, well, that could be all the things you think it is, that you've completely alienated yourself in the office and they all hate you. Or it could just be that you always come and they just assumed you'll come, you're staying in the hotel with, it could be all the normal things you were expecting.
Yeah.
But you've chosen to take a version of this, which is terrible.
You've gone straight to either I've upset them.
Yeah.
They don't like me anymore, all of those things.
And the reason they've done that, to a certain extent, is because if I imagine this terrible outcome, then I've saved myself from disappointment. Because if I imagine you hate me and then you hate me, then I'm very smart because I worked it out. Whereas if you actually turn out you don't hate me, it feels less difficult. And I can just laugh at I thought you hated me. Oh, I'm over it. So it's very protective behaviour.
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine the worst. Everything from that's an upside. The challenge with it is if I imagine the worst and then I behave in a way that it's the worst, I might be creating the very thing that I didn't want.
So you might actually manifest the outcome because your behaviour plays out in that way. So everybody then acts in accordance with that behaviour.
Yeah. So you didn't invite me to the pub. I made a big deal about not being invited to the pub when you just thought I was coming anyway. But now you're going, why are we inviting him to the pub where he makes a big deal out of these things?
Yeah.
And so now you're not inviting me to the pub, not because you didn't want me at the pub, but because I made a big deal out of being invited to the pub.
So playing this through a day-to-day lens then, this jumping to conclusions, why do we care about it? Why does it matter?
Well, just as I said, it's that kind of, if we're doing it, either we're making fundamental mistakes in, planning and action and or we're changing our mindset into a place that is not the most healthy mindset to do the thing we want to do. So if you take the one with the boss and go, they haven't gone back to me, they hate me, that's going to affect what you do next. It might mean that you don't work very productively for 2 days. It might be that you go and, have a negative conversation at the boss at the water cooler with 3 other people who then go and tell the boss. And the boss going, why are you, slagging me off in the background? So your behaviour is changed by these conclusions you've come to that then creates problems that weren't problems. So that's one of the reasons. The other is if you take the fortune telling bit where we're going into the future, actually you might look at something and go, well, this is never going to work. Well, what's the point of putting the effort in? It's never going to work.
Why try?
And now you haven't put the effort in, so guess what? It's not going to work.
So that is the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah. And therefore you've got to go, if I go, this is not going to work, you have to stop and go, okay, what's the evidence for that? One of the things I like is the thing they do in CBT a lot, cognitive behavioural therapy, is they kind of go, well, let's play that out. Let's put it in the courtroom. Let's put that thought into the courtroom. Right, what's the case for the prosecution? What's the case for the defence? And what's the judge saying in all this? If the prosecution turns up and goes, well, it never works, the judge is going to say, well, hang on a minute. Based on what? What's the game? You're Mr. Prosecutor now, you're you're testifying. You're not actually asking questions.
But that sounds like a really interesting way to start to overcome some of these things. Because I think it's probably a theme that's certainly gone through the others that you and I have recorded, is this multiple perspectives.
I was going to say multiple personalities.
Well, clearly, if you think about, how you're going to behave based on whether somebody's invited you to the pub or not. But thinking about these multiple perspectives that said, well, how does it stack up from this perspective? And you've given quite a good, prosecution, defence and judge. And given I've just come off from jury service, having served none of that and got away with it entirely, and I think they probably found out it was
probably
me.
The wrong expression from 2 weeks in the courtroom.
I got away with it entirely. It gives you those perspectives because each have got a different viewpoint, maybe even agenda. Certainly if you look at defence and prosecution, it's agenda driven, whereas the judge is there to be impartial.
Yeah, he's to stop either side being
overly
Yeah. So I think it is quite a nice way. But even just that exercise of going, all right, I think this. What is the case for the prosecution? Why do I think this? Well, this, and this. Okay, what's the case for the defence? Why is that wrong?
Yeah,
it's a really interesting question.
Yeah, what's the counter-argument here?
Yeah. So one of the things I always remember, and I probably got this wrong, but I can remember it of the vowels. So when you have one of those moments, that's the O, you go, E, where's my evidence? Where's my evidence supports this argument? A, what alternative explanations are there for this? Yeah. I, what are the implications of thinking this way? Well, if I think this and I'm wrong, but I'm going to take all the wrong actions, that's not helpful. And then you, is it even useful to think this? Can I just think something different? And I think the first two, particularly evidence and alternatives, are really powerful to stop you jumping to conclusions, to stop you making these leaps in your thinking that may cause then errors to happen in the way you act, you behave, the things that you do, the way you take action, because you've made this mistake.
We'll put those vowels in the description below, because I think they're a really good kind of sense check for managing perhaps some of this stuff, where we are perhaps jumping to conclusions and creating those alternative perspectives, or getting you to pause and reflect. It really feels to me, based on, talking to you and Richard through this series so far, that actually if we can just stop and think, that at least gives us the opportunity to go, what's really happening here?
And I think, and it's one of the things, I think coaching is such a useful thing, but it doesn't need to be a coach. Just with a colleague, is sometimes, thinking errors are driven by these highly emotive states. Sometimes having somebody else who has less skin in the game, who's going to be a much more rational player, is going to see things more in the round, see more balance, is really useful. Just sitting down with somebody else and going, well, I think this is going to happen. It's that little bit, and you've had it before, when you take it from a positive side. You have people in here's my plan. I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B, I'm going to do miracle, I'm going to do D, and then everything's going to be amazing. And they do it with absolute straight face. But the second they say it out loud to another human being, the other human being is going, okay, can we just go back to the miracle one again?
Because if you can make those happen, I'm quite interested.
Talk me through that one in a bit more detail, and you see it just disappear. And so I think going to somebody else, if you're mind reading, just going to somebody else and going, look, I said this, you said that, you reacted in this way. I'm thinking this. Have I got that right? Have I upset you? Is this wrong? Were you not happy there? Because a lot of the time they're going to go, oh, no. I was, there's three other things, and I thought this, and then I realised I've got the wrong end of the stick, and all of that comes out, and you go, oh, okay, I got that wrong. Or they might go, and this is the bit that's difficult for us to accept, they might go, yeah, actually, that really upset me. But now you can take action on it.
Yeah, no, and it's that deal with it, whatever it is, good, bad or indifferent, because if you're worrying about something that isn't true, because you haven't looked for the evidence, looked for what's going on really, and this ability to test, I suppose, that goes, are we okay? Enables you to then at least have a dialogue that then can be moved forward in some way, shape or form.
And the reality is, a lot of the time, what's going to be happening is they're doing it too. So they're going to go, no, that really upset me because, and you go, well, I didn't mean that at all.
Yeah, and this is the actions over intentions.
Yeah.
That you talk about all the time, that we're quite happy to judge other people's actions, but ourselves by our own intentions. So my intention was never to upset you, was never to make you feel that way, yet you believe my actions were.
Well, all I can do is judge what you do by how I think
and feel.
Yeah, because the reality is, as much as we get mind reading right, I can't read your mind. I am guessing. As much as we get predictions of the future right, I'm not a fortune teller. I am guessing. And it's that real understanding of, I can make very good guesses, but they're still guesses, and therefore they have an element of doubt in them.
Yep.
And to be better at what I do, I need to understand. And I say this for projects as well. You go, in projects, one of the most powerful things you can do is go, let's list all the assumptions. Because if we know what they are, we can continually test them. And the second they turn out not to be right, we can go back and change the plan. If we don't know what they are, we're going to leave the room, carry this great plan, and have no idea why it stopped working.
Yeah.
The only way we can create a project plan is by making some big leaps and jumping to some conclusions. But it'd be really nice to know which of the leaps we've made, just in case they were wrong.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And also, which were right, and were we lucky, or did we actually have the data that predicted that?
So you just come back to, what leaps are we making? Do we have evidence for them? Because if we do, we can then track that evidence and test that evidence. And if we don't, how the hell are we going to test this? Or are we just going to go, we can't, but we've got to be aware that that's a leap?
Yeah, and you're doing this naturally to protect yourself. So find a way of taking a pause in order to ask yourself some of those questions. And as I said before, we'll put those vowels in the description so that, because they seem like a good little bit of check and balances for this to me.
Yeah, and I just think I come across them years and years ago on one of the trainings I did many years ago, and I thought, oh, the vowels, I know them, I can remember that.
I'm interested how you're going to go, oh, in the description.
I use a word starting with S. O, S word.
Ah, that'll work.
When you go O, S word, then you go, right, what are the other 4 vowels?
So now you've got to look in the description to see what Paul's actually written.
Sugar.
Brilliant.
Next time on The Question Is.
Well, what we mean by that, emotional reasoning, is when we interpret reality based on our emotions rather than objective evidence.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.